Today's podcast is supported by David Smith of Edward Jones. Are you happy with your financial strategy? Or maybe like to see what other opportunities are out there? Well, give David a call at 469-372-1587. That's 469-372-1587. David is only concerned about one person, that's you and your financial health. So check him out, David Smith, Edward Jones, 469-372-1587. Hey everybody, it's the Trout. Hope you're having a great day. You know, when people compare you to a very well-known band, that's a good thing. Well, my guest today is a band out of New York City that's been compared to Steely Dan, Stevie Wonder, and a huge amount of jazz musicians. It's because their music is, well, we shall say, sophisticated, or easy listening, or complicated, or whatever it is. It just really sounds good. I'm talking about the band Gideon King and the City Blog. Gideon King spoke to me about his influences, how the band's put together, and how the members change over the course of years, which is very unusual for most bands. But they write some wonderfully great music. It's just different than everybody else's. And I think you'll like it. It's kind of smooth listening, but Gideon's a phenomenal, great guitar player. And the harmonies that his members come in and sing, well, they just make you feel great. You like Stevie Wonder and you like some jazz influences, sit back and enjoy this interview with Gideon King of the City Blog. That's next on The Trout Show.
This world I thought I knew is faded from view, sinking from drinking, thinking of you. Oh, but I'll make it home on my own 2 feet. Yeah.
So tell me first, and I know you're in New York City, but tell me a little bit why you decided. You know, most people, when they put a band together, they go out and get people they like and all that. But what was your thought concept when you said, I don't really want to do that. You know, I want to get a band, but I want to change people, I want to write music. How did that all come about in your mind?
I mean, you know, the thing is I grew up influenced by everything from Neil Young to Stevie Ray, which is someone I know you like based upon what you just said, to Wayne Shorter, to you know, Steely Dan and Brahms and Seal. So I have as long as there's some harmonic complexity to the music, I'm pretty drawn to it. And I was pretty drawn to complex lyric writers, you know. Obviously Bob Dylan, Neil Young are complex lyric writers and amazing lyric writers. My wife, who's a monster U2 fan, okay, really hooked me into his lyric writing, which is kind of amazing in its own very different way. So the truth is that my band has gelled into a core group of people over time. Mm-hmm. But I started out very much with the theory that you write music and, you know, you get the best musical athletes possible to come in and be part of it. And obviously that was initially inspired by Donald Fagen and Walter Becker. I mean, I don't need to tell you, if you're a Steely Dan, obviously enthusiast, that everybody from Wayne Shorter to Michael Brecker to Dennis Dias to, oh my God, to Ron Carter, what was on Steely Dan recordings, and Michael McDonald. I mean, it's basically endless.
Steve Gadd. Steve Gadd.
Yeah, of course, Bernard Purdy. We can go on now for.
I know, it's amazing how many people played on, and some of the people I found, Carlton, he was on it too.
Yeah, yeah,
And
Carlton,
and,
then
and
of
that's
course
where I found him and started listening to his music. You
yeah,
start
and then of
listening.
course Steve, Larry Carlton, and then Steve Kahn,
Yeah,
and all those
yeah.
guys. So I was very drawn to, and the idea that you could write music and then bring in all of these different musicians to give different colors. Now, I think that there is almost all upside from doing that. You learn from people. The music takes on a kind of it takes on a very eclectic kind of nature to it, and so that's really cool. If to the extent that you lose anything, perhaps maybe over time you can lose some cohesiveness or consistency or some common denominator, if you want to put it that way, to your sound. But over time, I've settled on, I don't want to say settled on, that actually is the wrong way to put it. I've embraced a group of musicians that form the core band more or less, only more or less. We've worked with Donnie McCaslin and John Schofield, and Mark Bouchard and all kinds of great singers and players. But this core group that I have working with me now is a pretty incredible group of players that can do anything from play straight out pop, straight out blues, to straight out jazz, classical. And so I'm finding that no matter where I set the bar, they're right there. In fact, I would say many of them have skills that far exceed my own. And so, but the idea of being confined to just rock musicians is not attractive to me. I want to be able to play a rock or a funk or an R&B tune, but I want jazz and classical and bluegrass and country and blues. I want it lurking around the music, and I want it to be identifiable to somebody who's listening. And if you don't get a certain type of musical athlete involved, then you're going to be deprived of that, the richness or that type of eclectic aspect to your music.
Well, I think, and the other thing that's interesting to me is in the way you say athlete, and is you're already starting here. You're not starting down here. You're already up here because of their skill set. I think it's just like anything else. You can always find people better than you, depending on what you want to do. But when you're starting at that level, it just changes the game.
Oh yeah,
and it also should make us, me and you both, better.
Yeah, and these guys and women are real listeners. Meaning, if you make a reference to my bass player, to the bass player for Leonard Skinner, he knows exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. If you make a reference to the bass track on Buckets of Rain, the Bob Dylan tune, he knows exactly what you're talking about. If you make a reference to who John Coltrane was playing with McCoy Tyner in a 1965 recording in a minor blues they're playing, he knows exactly which bass player it is. Wow. Or if you just say, I want to sound like a bass guitar, like a Foo Fighters song, he knows exactly what you're talking about. He can execute it, but it's deeper than that. He also really likes it. Meaning, I don't want jazz snobs who don't like U2 and Adele. I love U2 and Adele. Right. I love Eric Gales. I love Stevie Ray Vaughan. I love Robin Ford. I love John Scott. So I want them to truly love that stuff as well. Because if you don't love it, then you're just a jazz snob or a classical snob pretending to embrace something and getting paid to do it. But they really love this stuff. So I have my piano player will text me on any given night at 2 a.m. Hey, check this out. I'm listening to this great James Blake or this great Randy Newman recording. Oh. And then he'll say to me, I'm also listening to this Beethoven thing. Oh, and by the way, check out this Van Halen song. And so I want people who feel that kind of diverse sense of attraction to different types of music. Because, man, it just makes it more fun, and it's so much more, there's a kind of collectivism and an enthusiasm that develops when that type of true diversity in taste exists.
I don't know whether that exist in the music industry fans, because they go into their silos and they stay there. And that was one thing I've always been kind of asking, players if they know, especially if they're younger. How did you start? Who do you like? If they start telling me stuff and it's very, like I talked to a young kid the other day, he was only 10, and he's crazy good already. But here's the thing. So he said, I like classical. He just got down the list that you just said. I like this, I like that, I like heavy metal. But then when I got into the meat and potatoes of it, I said, look, I'm learning classical now. And I said, who's your favorite classical guitarist? Most people at that age or later won't even know who Andre Segovia is. He goes,
man.
Well, Segovia. I said, right. My point is, I like that idea too. Obviously, I gravitate to certain music. When you start writing, you're going to write the style that you do. I couldn't write a jazz song if I wanted to. I'm not much of a ballad writer. I can't do that. But I know what my lane is. But I'm like you and the bass player and probably a lot of the members of your band that you have come in. I want to hear a lot of different stuff. Yeah. Because you pick up that little nuance and you're like, oh, I never thought about doing that.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're copying it. It's just that you might go, oh, I never heard that look like that before.
Right. Yeah. The goal is not to copy.
No.
But the goal is to at least be humble enough to make reference to the past.
Yep.
Otherwise, if you have no awareness of the past, I guess unless you're some kind of pioneering, groundbreaking genius, which I'm not, then you just write dog shit.
Yeah. Well, and you can't. I just am a big history buff. I interviewed a gal just this week from Ireland. She's an Irish blues singer. She just told me she got a PhD in blues in Ireland. and she's going to be, she's been to the States before, but she's actually touring over here in April. She's going to do the New Orleans Blues and Jazz Festival. Great singer, great songwriter. But it was funny to hear her talk about something that started in America. But when I talk to people about the blues, and I'm a blues aficionado, is tell me a little bit about the history. And they can't, you want to know, because I'm a firm believer, it's just like people. If you know where they've been, you know where they're going.
Yeah.
So if you start talking to me about, some obscure blues player or some obscure, you mentioned jazz players, I know that you probably are aware of what the music industry is or what you're doing, instead of like, let's just put something together real quick.
When it comes to the blues is beyond important because forget that it's the foundation of Chuck Berry and also, but it's also like, I think people have a limited, not that you asked me this question, but what the hell?
No, go ahead.
People have a really limited understanding. I shouldn't say that. Some people have a really limited understanding of what the blues is. They think of the blues, oh, great, B.B. King. Maybe John Mayer plays a gig with his trio and he plays blues. Yeah. But the blues is Skip James. And the blues goes back to Louis Armstrong, and the blues goes back before then, even just the construction, of the one chord, and what you can do over that. You can play mixolydian, you can play simple pentatonic stuff.
Yeah,
man. You can find 1,000 chords within the associated diminished scale, over that, that type of stuff. And so the blues is honestly, it's endless. And then when you start getting to turnarounds and jazz blues turnarounds, when it's, say you're in C, so you're, and you just get into like those, those types of turnarounds. The blues is so expansive that it kind of bums me out when people say, oh, I really like blues. I went to a Chicago blues bar and I heard this guy. But actually, the blues is everything from Art Tatum through Herbie Hancock through, Van Halen and through Eric Gales, who I've been checking out lately. And I love Eric Gales. I think he can really play. But so the blues is like, you were saying like, 1/4 and all that stuff.
Yeah.
True, but man, the blues is completely and totally endless. There are things you can do just on the 1 chord, getting to the 4 chord. You could spend the rest of your life with that cadence, that musical cadence from the 1/4, from the D to the F, and we could never talk about anything else. There's so many ways to get there.
Concerned about your financial health? And reach out to David Smith with Edward Jones, 469-372-1587. That's 469-372-1587. He can conduct business where you are. Get your financial health checkup with David Smith with Edward Jones. His number one concern is you. That's David Smith with Edward Jones, 469-372-1587. But you know what's interesting? Well, here's the other thing about it too, is, and it lends itself to your band. Really good blues players, the ones that aren't even here with us anymore, had a lot of space in their music. There was a lot of space in it. And if I listen to your stuff, which I have, there's space in your music, brother. You know that. So it's not like you're sitting around like, oh, we got to fill it up with a synth here, or I got to do 4,000 notes at one time. That is really what, to me, when you talk to somebody like John Lee Hooker, that guy never did. I mean, here's a guy that never did much, but he was just like, I can't go. Why is he so freaking good?
Because he's amazing.
He was amazing. And you're like, but there's nothing there. And it's like, but that's the important thing about it.
It's in every lane of art. I forget the expression in the negative space. You know, it's the concept of negative space, and it goes for absolutely. You know, the ability to lay back and do nothing makes what you do obviously twice as impactful. And as I get older, and play with better people, and actually not even that, as I just listen to myself and say, oh my God, that sounds like shit. What the hell am I doing? You know, as I listen to myself, I'm learning that, like, if you're going to play something, especially when you're just accompanying, it really better mean something. Otherwise, you're just going to annoy everyone around you. It's going to be like, it's going to be like listening to a politician talk, just blather and nonsense. And so I'm learning over time to be more specific in what I play. And yeah, I mean, dude, John Lee Hooker is like, I mean, he's just unbelievable with respect to that. And you know, there's a lot of jazz equivalents to that. Man, there's so many examples of that.
So, you know, when you listen to your band music, it's, and I was telling somebody the other day about Asia, and I'm old enough. I mean, I go back to when Steely Dan brought their first albums out. I was in college when they brought out
Can't Buy a Thrill,
Jack, you know, Do It Again. And of course, Katie lied and all that stuff. And then they got Asia. And the reason that album caught my eye, which we had albums, was even the cover was not much, but it said a lot. I looked at that and I go, that is the coolest cover I've ever, and it's still,
well, if you want to talk about depth and space, Wayne Shorter's solo on the tune Asia.
Oh yeah.
Is so deep and haunting and great. Of course, we're talking about Wayne Shorter here. So it's like referencing the NBA and talking about Michael Jordan, but like, right. but I mean, it's just funny you bring up Asia. I just think Asia is one of the modern masterworks
absolutely.
Of anything. The lyrics, the music, talk about bluesiness. There's plenty of blues in there and plenty of space in the tune.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, your point is exemplified by that album. And by the way, on top of that, it's sophisticated as hell, that album.
Oh yeah.
As hell. It's musically sophisticated with a lot of space. It's beyond incredible. I don't know, man. It's one of the greatest albums of all time.
And you can't recreate stuff like that. It just sits, it's a special time. I mean, I know that they brought in a lot of different people to play on it and all that stuff, but the engineering, the recording, it seems like it was all top notch.
Oh yeah.
And they were
we spend a lot of time trying to get our recording process.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. Tell me a little bit about, all right. And so you got an idea for a song. Okay.
Right.
Do you write things down? Do you record? Just tell me that. Do you sit down and take your phone, or you go to your little studio? What do you do? And then
Yeah,
bring it to the
you know what?
band.
It's two parallel tracks
Okay.
lyrically. Just try and hear what people are saying. Maybe there's a funny expression. Maybe there's something I read, an idea, something that upsets me, something that I find funny, and I will write down a little spark of a phrase or something like that. And then musically, I'm just always trying to find some into something different. For example, the other day, I was messing around with a scale, the harmonic minor scale. Now,
Hmm.
the harmonic minor scale is, like, right,
Right.
that's super cheesy. And it reminds you of all the cheesy guys trying to sound like Spanish guitar players. But within that scale, there's actually a bunch of chords. That's one of them. Here's another one. So here's a major chord. Here's an augmented chord. Here's a half diminished chord. Okay. And here's a full diminished chord. So if you do that progression, all of a sudden, there's like a musical centricity to those chords. And there's a lot you could sing over that. So there's a spark of an idea harmonically. And then I say, well, cool. Let me start writing some lyrics around that or coming up with a concept. And then is it a fast, hard driving song? Is it a ballad? And so there's always some harmonic spark. Or I wrote a song called Desert and Sun. It's a much simpler motif. And
Right.
so, yeah, some musical idea, something that Richie Havens played, something.
There's a
that
name I haven't heard in a long time.
man, he was a great strummer though.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, so Richie Havens, so like something he'll play or something Adele will sing, something of Foo Fighters. I was just listening to Brahms the other day and figuring out the chord changes and what was happening there, or Keith Jarrett, and just some spark. So then you have the musical spark, and then you marry it with a lyrical spark. And then I either write the whole song, music and lyrics, or I take the skeleton to the band.
Okay.
And then we spend time in the studio putting blood, guts, and bones on the skeleton. And I don't think either way turns out better. I know sometimes it's a relief when other people get involved in the writing process, just because it takes away some of the burden of completely finishing a song.
Right.
But man, it's just about finding these sparks. And the only way I can find the sparks harmonically is to constantly be studying music, constantly. Well, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's, I literally don't care if it's the first 3 seconds of an Ed Sheeran song. Anything to, and I don't even like Ed Sheeran, to be honest, but like anything to spark some pathway. And then the funny thing about it is people, they talk about inspiration. Oh, how do you get inspired? The truth is, the only moment of true inspiration is the beginning for me. The initial idea. And then the rest is sort of pain and suffering and work to bring form and function to it. And people think, you're somehow inspired by some divine light all the way through the writing process. Actually, it's a fucking pain in the ass. And you kind of have to slog through it the way that an accountant has to get through his paperwork at 6:45 a.m. in the morning.
And I was watching the other day, it was interesting, it came up on YouTube. Ringo from the Get Back movie. Ringo came into the studio one day and started playing Octopus's Garden.
I saw that.
Did you see that? That was kind of cool. And he goes, "That's all I got. I'd like to be under the sea." And then here comes George, and then the rest of them. What are they doing? Slogging through the rest of the song, going, "Okay, have you thought about that?" And the thing about it, when you're a solo performer like me, and I'm trying to, and I told people that I interview, I have people now, a lot of places that said they'd collaborate with me. Yeah. But it's not like sitting in a studio when you got great musicians like you do, and you sit there and you go, what about this harmony? And they sit, I can hear it, I can see you doing it. Where you're sitting in the studio and the singers are sitting there in the booth with you, and you're kind of going over, or they get sitting in there, in the recording booth listening. I could see that happening.
Yeah.
That you can't make up by yourself.
Yeah. And you have to have a mixture. First of all, you have to have nice people, and you have to have people that can change their minds.
Yep.
And you have to have people that their feeling doesn't get hurt because you're not going in a certain direction. Meaning, like, it's much more fun when people just throw ideas into the mix and nobody's feelings get hurt. So I think we've established a great working model in the studio, which is lots of chaos, lots of ideas, and then no hurt feelings, lots of laughter. But everybody knows that eventually you got to pick a horse and ride it. And you got to get an actual tune done, because you can't call yourself a songwriter if over the course of the next 3 years you say, well, I've done 2 songs. It's like, no, you've got to write a lot of songs if you're a fucking songwriter.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Sometimes I meet people and they're like, well, I'm a musical artist. I'm like, cool, you know. They're like, yeah, I've been working on these 2 songs for 4 years. And it's like, I don't understand that. Like, it's like, you got to get it out. You got to get it out. And so, we do put an emphasis on completion and finishing the idea and finishing the song. And then we put a ton of emphasis on production, a ton, where we're very cognizant of the modern tools, which are endless, that are available to us, and using them sparingly and tastefully, and still remembering that, you know, pianos and guitars and voices and that stuff's beautiful. And it always, there's a reason when you go on Spotify, there's still a ton of streams on Mahler, because sure, you had cellos and stuff like that, but that stuff was beautiful then, and it's beautiful now. Like, I guess what I was saying is just, the spark, a focus on actual execution, like honestly, like a business where you have a budget, you have a board meeting, and you're supposed to get it done, and then no egos, just no egos.
When you bring people in, they're excited.
Oh yeah.
Oh, look, we're going to the studio. Oh, what new stuff are working? It isn't like, Rick wrote the song. Rick wants it this way. You sit down and go, all right, here's the guts of it, but I'm open. As a songwriter, you have to be open too, because it's your stuff. But then that spark of creativity, I'm sure, comes when they all come in and they start going, and all of a sudden that catches in.
Oh yeah.
And already, because they've been with you before, they know your production values. They know you're not putting crap out. That this is a higher game that we're trying to go to.
Yeah, it is. And these guys and these women, they get that big time. And you know what? Honestly, it's like if you play pickup basketball on the street, in a park, you look around and you say, I want him. You want the people that look like the best athletes. So I've done that. And I just assume, I say, well, these two, I've watched them play for the last half hour. They're just better basketball players than I am. So I'm picking them. Yeah. And it really, it works really well if the people are really amazing musicians and they're really, really nice. And they're secure in their skills. Mm. So if you can find people that are secure in their skills, that's a big deal, because then it's way more fun and way more truly collaborative. And someone who's really secure says, oh, fuck it. You know what? You're right. What I just played stinks. Sometimes I'll do a take of a guitar solo, and my engineer, who I've been working with for a long time, who's a drummer and a guitar player and a guitar maker and a wizard engineer, he'll be like, Gid, that stinks. Like you maybe try this. And I don't want him to say, oh, wow, that was really amazing. No. But maybe you could try this. I just want him to say, hey, that one sucked. Let's do another one. So we could just get on with it, So I'm good with that type of dialogue. And I think we found a group of people that feel that way. And I think the product I'm really proud of what's now coming out of our studio, more proud of it than I've actually ever been. I genuinely believe deeply in my heart, it's good quality music.
If you could wave a wand and money was no object, what would you do?
I would like to look. What day is today? March 24th.
Today's Friday. Yeah.
February 24th. So when we do our next podcast together on February 24th of 2025,
right,
I would like our audience to grow. I would like a community of music nerds to really enjoy our music. I would like to have a huge catalog of music. So when you get on a drive 300 miles to go visit your sister or brother or son or wife or whatever, you can listen to 4 straight hours of GKCB, of our band's music, and say, wow, there are some songs I really love and hear. And they come from a lot of different places musically. And I would like to just be a really well-known, well-respected boutique band, respected for competently writing interesting compositions that are, hopefully a little bit out of the box. I'm not going to be, I think it's pretty obvious just looking at me. I'm not going to be Harry Styles. Okay. And I'm not going to be even Gary Clark Jr. I just want us to grow. And if we have some huge hits along the way, great. Why not make some money? That would always be fun to make a little money.
Yeah,
wouldn't. Yes, that'd be sort of a funny joke. But what I'd like to do, and I think we're well on the way to doing that actually, is have people say, yeah, those guys are really good. Almost the way, I hate excessive analogizing, but almost the way years ago, people sort of listened to Steely Dan. They said, those guys are really, even before they went live, right? They were mostly studio band.
Yeah, they were studio.
Those guys write amazing songs with really interesting, different, smart lyrics. They're harmonically interesting and they're lyrically interesting. And they're just a band I really like. They're competent, interesting, different songwriters. That's all I want, is for people to say that about us. I mean, and I would like the size of venue that we can fill to grow. I would like to be able to have a certain number of people in the audience. I would, instead of 300, I'd like to have 900. And 5 years ago, we couldn't have 3. And 5 years ago, we had no streams on Spotify. Now we have hundreds of thousands of streams on every song. So my hope is we just continue to grow. I don't have any specific popularity endpoints. There's the old expression, that man plans and God laughs. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to fall into that trap. Just keep putting out high volumes of really quality music, and hopefully more and more people recognize it.
Thanks, Gideon. Take care.
Right. Okay.
See ya.
This song is covered for your winter, and I beg your pardon for all I put us through. Swallow these notes, breathe in these chords before that bitter wind comes tearing through. For the love of God or the fear of hell, no one owns this story but me and you. I don't want inside, give me history before that bitter wind comes tearing through. Sorry is for losers, the winners make it count. Some say ice is beautiful, honey, I've got my doubts. Sorry is for losers, the winners make it count. Sorry, 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 sorry I lost some ground. Feel me as I take out all your splinters beneath the surface. Everything's for you. My soul is singed from adventure. I hope our memories will pull us through.
that's it for this episode of The Trout Show. Thanks so much for listening. Special thanks to Gideon King for taking time out of his busy day to visit with me. For more information about Gideon King and his band, you can visit him on his website at GideonKingCityBlog.com. GideonKingCityBlog.com. You know me, I'm The Trout, and you can find me and everything about our show, our podcast, our YouTubes at thetroutshow.com. So until next time, people, remember what I always say. It's only rock and roll. But gosh darn it, I love it. See ya.